It is a Tuesday evening in late July, and you are standing at the kitchen counter about to slice a peach for supper. You reach for the fruit bowl, and a little brown cloud lifts off the peaches and scatters toward the window. Yesterday it was two or three. Today it is a dozen, maybe more, drifting around the bananas, circling the recycling, hovering over the drain. You can feel the summer heat in the kitchen, and you already know what comes next. Another trip to the store, another $6 or $7 on a plastic trap pack that catches a few and leaves the rest, or a spray can at $5 that kills what is flying right now and does nothing about what is hatching tomorrow. You have done this before. Last July, you spent close to $20 across the summer on traps and sprays, and by August, the flies were still there, and the peaches still went to waste because nobody wants to eat fruit with a cloud on it. There is a way that costs about $1, less than $1, honestly, closer to 15 or 20 cents if you already have a jar, that the old folks used to clear a kitchen of fruit flies using nothing but what was already in the pantry. It works. University extension offices still recommend the principle behind it. And the only reason it is not common knowledge in every household in this country is that nobody makes a dime teaching you to solve a problem with a jar and a splash of vinegar. There is real money in selling you a new trap pack every summer. There is no money at all in showing you the thing that makes the trap pack unnecessary. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what it is, why it works, what it costs to the penny, and why it fails if you skip the one step most people skip. You will also know the honest limits, what it handles and what it does not. Because I do not sell miracles. I show you the figures and let the math talk. I want to be straight with you before I go further. That plastic trap pack you picked up at the store, that spray can that kills whatever is flying right this second, you are treating the symptom and leaving the nursery open. The trap company gets your $6 or $7. The spray company gets your 5 or 6. And in 2 days, the flies are back, because nothing you bought touched the reason they came. You do not need a branded fruit fly trap. You do not need a spray. You need a reused jar from your own recycling, a splash of apple cider vinegar that costs about 15 cents, and one single drop of dish soap. That is the whole adult catching side of this. And it has been sitting in American kitchens since long before the pest control aisle existed. By the end of this, you will know exactly why it works, how to build it, where to place it, what it honestly costs, how fast it helps, why it will fail if you skip the one cleanup step most folks skip, and what to realistically expect. I am going to walk you through the plain science first, then the exact steps with a price on every piece, then the honest math. And I will tell you where it does not work, because that matters as much as the rest. My name is Dot Perkins. I am 72 years old, and I have kept a thrifty house my whole life because my mother kept one before me. She raised 6 of us through years when there was no money for anything extra, and she never once bought what she could handle with what was already in the pantry. I watched her deal with summer flies every July with a jar, a sour smell, and a clean kitchen. No gadget, no trip to the store. I share these things because I see good people spending real money on problems that cost almost nothing to solve, and the old ways that would have saved them are sitting quiet because nobody has a reason to teach them anymore. That is my only reason. Now, before I show you what to do, I need you to understand why this works, because that is what tells you what to expect and what not to expect. Those little brown flies in your kitchen are not random visitors. They are vinegar flies. That is actually their closer common name. And they are drawn to one thing above everything else: the smell of fermenting material. Overripe fruit, juice residue in the bottom of a can, wine left in a glass, beer in a bottle, the thin film of organic matter sitting in a drain or a disposal, a forgotten potato going soft in the back of a drawer. Anything wet and fermenting pulls them in. And here is the part that turns a nuisance into a swarm seemingly overnight. Once a female finds that fermenting spot, she lays her eggs right on it. The larvae feed there for several days, and the whole life cycle from egg to flying adult can finish in roughly 8 to 10 days under warm indoor conditions. That is why 3 flies on Monday become 30 by the following week. It is not magic. It is arithmetic and warm kitchens. Apple cider vinegar works as a trap bait because it smells exactly like what those flies are already chasing, a fermenting food source. University extension offices across the country recommend it for exactly this purpose. It is cheap, it is effective, and it mimics the scent signal fruit flies follow. Now, the dish soap. 1 drop of dish soap changes everything about the surface of that vinegar. Soap is what chemists call a surfactant. In plain language, it breaks the surface tension of the liquid, that light, invisible skin on top of any liquid that lets a tiny insect land, skate across, and fly away. Without the soap, a fruit fly can touch down on the vinegar, taste it, and leave. With 1 drop of soap in the vinegar, that skin is gone. The fly lands and goes through. That is the whole mechanism. The vinegar is the lure. The soap is the trap. Together, they do a job that a $6 commercial product does, for about 15 to 20 cents. Now here is the honest part, and I want you to hear it clearly. This trap is strong for catching flying adults. It is not magic against the eggs and larvae already sitting in a hidden breeding spot somewhere in your kitchen. If there is soft fruit rotting in the back of a drawer, sour liquid pooled in a recycling bin, or organic sludge built up in a drain, new adults will keep emerging even while the trap catches the old ones. So the honest promise is not that 1 jar erases biology in 24 hours. The honest promise is this: it catches adults fast, it reduces the egg-laying pressure on your kitchen, and it helps collapse the problem when you pair it with finding and cleaning up the breeding source. Both halves matter. The trap without the cleanup is a Band-Aid. The cleanup without the trap leaves adults flying and laying eggs while you scrub. Together, they work. If these old ways that keep real money in your pocket are useful to you, I would ask you to subscribe. I put one of these out regularly, each one a different household expense you can cut to almost nothing. That is all I will say about it. Now, let me show you exactly how to do this. Step 1. Find the breeding side before you bait the killing side. This is the part most folks get wrong, and it is the reason the trap seems like it did not work. Before you touch a jar, walk your kitchen. Look at the fruit bowl. Look at the banana hook. Open the potato and onion drawer. Check the rim of the trash can. Look at the recycling, especially any cans or bottles with residue still in them. Check the mop head, the dish rag left in the sink, and the edge of the drain. Any damaged fruit should be eaten right now, refrigerated, or thrown away. Any juice residue, any sticky ring on a counter, any can with a sip of soda still in it, that is where the eggs are. University extension offices are plain about this. A few drops of spilled juice behind an appliance or under a counter edge can support a large fruit fly population all by itself. If you skip this step, you are setting a trap in a room that is still running a nursery, and you will be disappointed. If you suspect the drain but you are not sure, here is a simple test the entomologists recommend. Cover the drain opening overnight with a plastic food storage bag, taped loosely around the edges. Check it in the morning. If you find adult flies caught inside the bag, your drain is part of the problem, and no amount of vinegar on the counter will fix what is breeding below the sink line. Step 2. Build the trap in a jar, not in an open bowl. Take a used pasta sauce jar, a jelly jar, a mason jar, anything glass you were about to recycle. That jar is free. If for some reason you need to buy one, a 12-pack of ball pint jars is about $13.44 right now, which is about $1.12 each. But most kitchens have a jar already. That is the honest, old-fashioned starting point. You reuse what you have. Step 3. Pour about a quarter cup of apple cider vinegar into the bottom of the jar. That is roughly 2 fluid ounces. A 32-ounce bottle of great value apple cider vinegar at Walmart is $2.36 right now. That works out to about 7.5 cents per ounce, so your quarter cup of bait costs about 15 cents. The jar does not need to be full. You are making a scent source, not a beverage. Enough to cover the bottom and send up a good fermenting smell. That is all you need. Step 4. Add 1 drop of dish soap, then stop. 1 drop, not a squirt, not a pour, not enough to make suds. The soap is there to ruin the surface tension, not to perfume the kitchen. A bottle of great value dish liquid runs about $2.46 for 28 ounces, and 1 drop of that is so small it does not register on a price. You are not washing anything here. You are ruining the landing strip. That is all the soap does, and 1 drop is enough to do it. Step 5. Close the top so getting in is easy and getting out is hard. There are 2 honest ways. The simplest is to pull a piece of plastic wrap tight across the mouth of the jar, secure it with a rubber band, and poke 1 small hole through the plastic with a toothpick or the tip of a pen. Flies follow the scent through the hole, and most of them cannot find their way back out. The more old-fashioned way is to roll a piece of paper into a small funnel, stick the narrow end down into the jar so it nearly touches the vinegar, and tape it in place. The funnel guides them in, and the narrow opening confuses the exit. If you want the feel of the old method, the paper funnel is the one your grandmother would recognize. If you want the quickest setup with what is already in the drawer, the plastic wrap works fine. Both are better than leaving the jar open, because an open bowl lets flies land, taste, and leave. Step 6. Put the trap right beside the activity, not across the kitchen. Fruit flies stay close to their breeding material. If the cloud is around the fruit bowl, set the jar next to the fruit bowl. If the problem is at the recycling, put it there. If you suspect the sink, set it on the counter right beside the drain. A trap on the far side of the room is competing with every other smell between here and there, and it will catch less. Step 7. Once the trap is placed, reduce every competing scent in the kitchen. Refrigerate ripe fruit. Throw away anything soft or starting to turn. Rinse every bottle and can in the recycling. Empty the trash before it gets sweet. Wipe down any sticky residue on counters or under the fruit bowl. The trap works best when it is the strongest fermenting smell in the room. If you leave a buffet of rotting fruit and dirty cans sitting out, the jar is just one more option, and not even the best one. Step 8. Keep the trap running through the full life cycle window. This is where patience matters, because eggs and larvae that were already laid before you set the trap can finish developing in roughly 8 to 10 days. You may catch a swarm of adults fast and think the problem is solved, only to see a new wave emerge from whatever was already incubating. Keep the trap active and keep the kitchen clean for at least 10 days to 2 weeks. That is the honest timeline. You may see a sharp drop in flying adults within a day or 2. That part can happen quickly. But a true kitchen reset means trapping through the next emergence cycle, not quitting after the first good catch. Now let me say something plain about 2 wrong approaches, because there is a lot of bad advice on this one. The first is spraying the air and calling it done. Pyrethrin sprays and similar products kill the adults that are present at the moment you spray, but they leave no lasting protection. The instant the spray settles, any new adult that emerges from a breeding site is untouched. You can kill the ones you can see all afternoon long. If you leave the nursery behind, you bought yourself a break, not a solution. The second mistake is putting chunks of actual fruit into a homemade trap and then forgetting about it. Extension Pest Management Guidance warns that fruit-baited indoor traps can end up breeding more flies than they catch if the fruit itself becomes a laying site. Keep your bait liquid and sour, vinegar, not a compost pile in a jar. Now let me tell you where this truly comes from, because you are not learning something new. You are recovering something old. Depression-era families did not have branded fruit fly traps. They did not have a pest control aisle. What they had were reused jars, bottles, and the understanding that a sour, fermenting smell would pull vinegar flies right to it. The old jar trap, baited with fermenting liquid, leftover wine, cider going to vinegar, fruit scraps in a bottle with a narrow neck, is a practice that long predates any product you can buy today. University extension offices still describe it: a jar, a paper funnel, cider vinegar as bait. The only modern refinement is the drop of dish soap, which makes the old lure more lethal by breaking the surface tension the old-timers could not easily defeat. The principle is theirs. The soap drop is the one small update. My mother would not have bought a branded trap for a fly she could fool with a jar and a sour smell, and she would have been right not to. The habit that keeps this from coming back is simpler than the fix. It is a 30-second kitchen check daily, especially in warm weather. Refrigerate ripe fruit before it turns. Wipe juice rings off counters. Rinse recyclables before they go in the bin. Empty the trash before it gets sweet. Check the back corners where produce gets forgotten: the bottom of the onion drawer, behind the stand mixer, the spot where the bananas sit. Once a week, especially if you have had trouble before, check the drain and the disposal. Run hot water and scrub the splash guard. If the counter is clean and the flies keep appearing, the drain is almost always where the answer is hiding. Now, be honest about what this does. The vinegar and soap trap is strong for catching flying adults. That is well supported by university extension offices and integrated pest management guidance across the country. It is strong as part of an integrated routine: trapping plus source removal plus basic sanitation. It is mild as a standalone fix if you set the jar and change nothing else. If the breeding source is still feeding the next wave, if the trap is sitting far from the hot spot, if the bait is competing with a counter full of rotting fruit and dirty recycling, it will underperform. And if the problem is not fruit flies at all, if what you are seeing are drain flies, which are fuzzier, slower, and tied to plumbing biofilm, a vinegar jar beside the bananas will not solve a plumbing problem. For a drain fly issue or a persistent infestation that does not respond to 2 weeks of trapping and cleaning, call a pest professional. This is the cheap, effective first thing to try. It is not a cure for everything. One safety note, and it is a plain one. The trap itself is harmless: vinegar and a drop of soap. Keep it where children or pets will not knock it over and mistake it for something to drink. And this matters. If anywhere in your kitchen cleanup you reach for bleach, never mix bleach with vinegar. Never mix bleach with any other cleaner. Bleach and acids together produce toxic fumes, and that is not a small warning. Use them separately, rinse between, and keep the air moving. Now, I want to take a moment because here is where it all comes together. Look at what we have walked through. 1 reused jar, free. A 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar, about 15 cents. 1 drop of dish soap, effectively nothing. A piece of plastic wrap or a scrap of paper for a funnel, pennies. And the real work: finding the breeding source, cleaning it, and keeping the kitchen clear of competing smells for 10 days to 2 weeks. The trap catches the adults. The cleanup stops the cycle. Both together, and you have a kitchen solution that costs less than a quarter and replaces a product that costs $3 to $7 per round. The honest math is plain. 1 reused jar, 0. 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar from a $2.36 bottle, about 15 cents. 1 drop of dish soap from a $2.46 bottle, call it 0. Scrap plastic wrap or paper for the funnel, a penny or 2 at most. Your real per-trap working cost is about 16 to 20 cents, using a jar you already had. A commercial taro fruit fly trap 2-pack starts at about $6.77 at Walmart, which is roughly $3.39 per trap. So 2 homemade traps from reused jars cost you about 32 to 40 cents total. 2 commercial traps cost $6.77. That is a gap of over $6 on the first round alone, before you ever count sprays, refills, or the produce you kept throwing away because nobody told you to look for the breeding source. On a fixed income over a summer, that gap is real money kept. There is no money in teaching a family that a jar they already own, a few ounces of vinegar, and 1 drop of soap handle the visible side of a fruit fly problem for pennies. There is a recurring market in branded traps, in lure refills, in sprays that kill what is flying and leave the breeding site untouched. Add 2 generations of families getting busier, more packaged, and less likely to pass along the small household knowledge that used to travel from mother to daughter at the kitchen counter, and the old method fades without anyone having to hide it. This is not a conspiracy. It is plainer than that. When the answer costs 15 cents and uses what you already have, nobody has much reason to market it to you. You can be the family that never paid. This was never really about a fly. It is about whether every small kitchen nuisance sends you back to the store or whether you know how to solve it with what is already in the pantry and a little understanding. A home that depends on you instead of a product label. The quiet relief of keeping money instead of spending it on a problem you now know how to handle. That is what the old folks built, and it is still available to anyone willing to learn it. Here's what I want you to do tonight, after supper. Walk the kitchen. Throw away or refrigerate any soft fruit. Rinse the recycling. Wipe any sticky residue. Set 1 jar trap right beside the hot spot, and if you suspect the drain, tape a plastic bag over it overnight and check in the morning. That is your first evening, and it costs you about 20 cents. This week, keep the trap running and refresh the vinegar every few days. Scrub the hidden spots you usually skip, under the fruit bowl, behind the dish rack, the splash guard on the disposal. This month, stop treating fruit flies like a spray problem and start treating them like a sanitation and bait problem. This season, get into the rhythm of washing down sticky residue before it ferments into a swarm. The saving is small per trap, but the habit of solving problems with what you already own instead of reaching for the store, that is the saving that compounds across a whole household all year long. Now, 2 things I want to hear from you, and I mean this. I read every single one. First, what in your kitchen seems to draw them first? The fruit bowl, the drain, or the recycling? I am curious whether it is the same answer for most folks or whether every kitchen has its own weak spot. And second, did your mother or your grandmother have a jar trick, a bottle trick, or a pantry method for summer flies that people have forgotten? These little inherited methods get lost when nobody writes them down. Share it. Someone reading your comment will be glad you did. If this was useful to you, subscribe. I put one of these out regularly, each time a different household expense cut to almost nothing, using the old ways that still work. Next time, the same principle, different problem. The cheap drain cleanout rhythm that cuts off the hidden breeding side of kitchen pests, instead of just catching what is already in the air. Same low cost, same honest figures. Subscribe so you do not miss it. Until then, check the kitchen tonight, set the jar, find the source, and keep it clean through the cycle. That is how the careful old folks kept a kitchen clear and $1 unspent on things that never needed buying. That is how it is still done in any home that remembers.